Voice Media.
We're back with more true crime headlines for you this week. Not a true crime headline, but we do have some personal breaking news. No pun intended. Amber had a little run-in with a hard corner in a dark room and is now sporting a very cool shoe.
Mine and your definitions of cool greatly differ, my friend. Yeah, no, after the bedroom remodel that we were forced to do, I've not totally gotten the layout done, ran into my room in the dark and got into a fight with that really heavy storage trunk at the end of my bed. Pinky toe connected with that. I lost the fight. You know, this is my first like real confirmed broken bone. I was close to passing out from the pain, and it's just my pinky toe. How do other people do the other things that no?
I know. Well, remember when the babies were little and I went to visit my mom at work and slammed my toe on the metal door and broke it, and then came to your house and it was like, I'm pretty sure I broke my toe, and yours looked very similar to what mine looked like. I was like, yeah, that's broken.
Yeah, no, whenever I hobbled into the urgent care yesterday, just to be safe, just to check it out, a patient in the waiting room, she, overheard me and she looked down, she goes, "Hi, sorry, no, but that 100% is broken. I've broken many fingers and toes, so yeah, it's broken." I'm like, love that for me.
Great. Well, hopefully you'll be on the mend well enough to wear your cool boots to our upcoming events instead of your medical one. But I wouldn't get my hopes up too high about that. So we'll have to find you a cool other shoe to wear on your other foot that's like the same height, So at least you're not uneven. She's looking at me like she's going to kill me.
Yeah, since nobody can actually see my face right now, if looks could kill, I'd be featured on our own podcast.
Yeah, I would be dead. So before we get into this week's headlines, please take a minute to leave us a 5-star rating and write us a nice review wherever you're listening. It helps other listeners like you know we're worth checking out.
All right, now that all the housekeeping and mockery is out of the way, let's get into this week's headlines. I'm Amber.
And I'm Gina.
And this is Weird True Crime. In what felt like a very quick trial and 3 hours of deliberation, Kouri Richins has been found guilty of aggravated murder. The conviction is punishable by 25 years to life in prison. Richins was also found guilty on 4 other counts, including forgery and fraud stemming from the nearly $2 million in life insurance policies she opened in her husband Eric's name.
Unfortunately for Richins, Eric had cut her out of his will years prior after he discovered massive amounts of debt she had racked up in his name. In his closing statements, prosecutor Brad Bloodworth, what a name, by the way, said she wanted to leave Eric Richins, but she did not want to leave his money.
Richins declined to testify during the trial and pleaded not guilty to all 5 charges. Around 40 witnesses testified during the 3-week trial. The defense argued that Eric had Lyme disease and was addicted to painkillers and said the investigation was sloppy and driven by bias.
Obviously, the defense's argument didn't hold much weight. There were too many holes in Richins' story. She told investigators that she left her phone charging in her bedroom while she went to sleep with one of their kids who had been having a nightmare the night Eric died. However, phone data showed messages had been sent and deleted during that time period.
Investigators found a second iPhone in Richins' bedside drawer, which is the phone that contained the incriminating searches we discussed during the last Headlines episode. A couple more intriguing searches included death certificate says pending, will life insurance still pay? And luxury prisons for the rich in America.
What a joke.
Oy.
I know. The phone also contained text messages between Richins and a contact named CL, who was identified as that housekeeper, Carmen Lauber. In the messages, Richins asked for help obtaining prescription pain medications, quote, for an investor who had a back injury.
In February 2022, Richins asked the housekeeper for fentanyl. She said the investor wanted some of that Michael Jackson stuff. She then asked Lauber for more fentanyl 2 weeks later, after her first attempt at killing Eric with a sandwich laced with fentanyl failed.
Eric died 6 days later. When the couple got married in 2013, they signed a prenup establishing they wouldn't have rights to each other's properties, with one exception: if Eric died while they were married.
Richins knew if she left Eric, she'd leave most of his money. So instead, she took $250,000 in equity from Eric's house without his knowledge and used it to start her own business flipping houses in 2019. The same year, she took out a $250,000 line of credit on their home. I bet I don't need to tell you that Eric had no idea.
No, he didn't, but he did catch on in 2020. By this point, Richins had also charged more than $30,000 on Eric's credit and withdrawn at least $100,000 from his bank account. He confronted Richins about the money and then quietly changed his will to give control of his estate to his sister to make sure that his kids got the money and not her.
Richins found out she had been removed from Eric's estate 10 days after his death. Oof.
Mm-hmm.
According to court filings, when Richins learned this news from Eric's sister, Richins punched her in the neck and face, because that's an appropriate reaction.
She is cuckoo bananas, like, honestly. And Richins' time in court is far from over. She faces 26 other felony charges, including mortgage fraud, money laundering, and issuing bad checks. She is also facing time in civil court, where she'll begin litigating property issues with Eric's family.
Sentencing will take place on May 13th, which would have been Eric's 44th birthday. I really do like when karma makes its presence known.
And there are so many other details to this story. We could honestly probably do a 3-parter on it.
For sure.
So it came out in trial that the book about grief that was written was actually written by a ghostwriter. She didn't even write it. And then there's all the communication that she had with her mother and I think her brother. There are so many other details that we could get into this. So this is just very, very high level of what was taken away from the trial and just like the main facts of it. But yeah, this is crazy. And like I said last time, I have a feeling I'll probably get into the weeds about this at some point because it's just so weird.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
As you said, cuckoo bananas.
Cuckoo bananas. What a special woman. Well, this next story is still developing, and honestly, it's just really sad. On the evening of March 19th, a marina worker near Port Olympic in Barcelona flagged down police. Officers cordoned off the area, and a dive team was called in.
The body of 20-year-old Jimmy Gracey was pulled from the water around 7:15 p.m., just 500 feet from the last place anyone saw him alive. His body had bruising consistent with hitting rocks repeatedly over several hours.
James Jimmy Gracey was a junior at the University of Alabama, an honors accounting student and the chaplain of his Theta Chi fraternity chapter. Jimmy went to college prep in Chicago and played hockey and lacrosse. He was the oldest of 5 kids, often helping his parents look after his younger siblings. By all accounts, he was a genuinely good, responsible guy.
He flew to Barcelona on Monday, March 16th, to visit friends who were studying abroad there. That night, he went out with his group to Xoco, a popular beachfront nightclub near Port Olympic. Most of his friends left around 3 a.m., but Jimmy stayed behind. He was seen talking to an American woman with brown hair, and that was the last anyone saw of him.
When he didn't come back to the Airbnb the next morning, his friends called the police and Jimmy's parents. His mom posted in a Barcelona expat Facebook group looking for help, and his dad got on a plane. The story went international fast because everyone kept saying the same thing. This was completely out of character for him.
For 2 days, police threw everything at the search. Helicopters, underwater dive teams, and motorcycle units along the coastline where he was last seen. Divers were working with only about 16 inches of visibility underwater. They found nothing until the marina workers started running toward them.
Now, here's where it gets murky. Because even though Jimmy's body had been found, we still don't really know what happened to him that night. Investigators say surveillance footage shows Jimmy falling into the sea from the breakwater between Somorrostro Beach and Port Olympic. In the video, he can be seen talking to someone and then walking alone toward the water.
They're calling it an accident, but they're not fully closing the door on anything yet. Police have declined to confirm the surveillance footage report, saying they won't comment on what's appeared in the media. His wallet was found intact, cash, cards, ID, all still there. So he wasn't the victim of a robbery.
His phone was stolen, but the guy who had it is believed to have just found it on the street and had no contact with Jimmy that night.
The big question still hanging out there is whether he was drugged, whether by someone else or something he took himself. Another possibility is that he may have drunk enough to disorient himself seriously. Toxicology results aren't back yet, and until they are, this case isn't officially closed.
His family is still in Barcelona waiting to bring him home to Illinois. They put out a statement saying they're heartbroken and grateful for the support. And honestly, they deserve answers. We'll do an update on socials when those tox results come back, so be sure to follow us on Instagram at Weird True Crime for those results. It's really sad. It first broke because he was just this college student that went to Barcelona to see his friends and he went missing and nobody knew where he was for days. I don't want to speculate. It sounds like this was just a really horrible accident, in my opinion. I think maybe he was really intoxicated and lost his footing and fell.
And, it doesn't help that he's in an unfamiliar area.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's sad. We'll see, though.
I think this is one of those situations where, once again, don't leave your friends alone. Even if they're like, I'm good, I'll come back later, especially if you're somewhere where you don't know where you are. It's the same for men or women. Don't let somebody go off on their own. Make sure somebody's with them so you know that they make it back, okay? Because we hear this kind of thing time and time again.
Exactly.
It's just sad all around.
So we covered the Nancy Guthrie case on the last True Crime Headlines episode, and we said we'd update you guys when there was new information. So here we are. Unfortunately, we still don't have answers, but there are new developments worth talking about.
If you missed our last episode on this, go back and listen. We laid out all the basics there. But the quick version is Nancy Guthrie, 84-year-old mother of Today's Show host Savannah Guthrie, was abducted from her home in Tucson on February 1st. There's confirmed blood evidence, doorbell camera footage of an armed suspect, and ransom notes. That's where we left off.
So let's pick up from there. We're now in week 8, and the vibe has shifted in Tucson in a big way. The news vans are gone, the law enforcement vehicles are gone, and even Savannah has gone back to New York. There are now parking restrictions around the house and a sign outside that literally says, quote, "Dear media, this neighborhood needs space to process, heal, and gather in privacy," end quote.
Which honestly, fair. But the optics of the media packing up and leaving when this woman is still missing are rough. We've seen this so many times in missing persons cases. It's never a great sign when interest starts waning.
Investigators pulled new surveillance footage from cameras on Nancy's property, a fence camera, a driveway camera, and reviewed weeks of footage going back before the abduction. Family members, landscapers, pool workers. Nothing suspicious. And the masked suspect from the front door camera never appeared on any of the other footage.
So that's basically a dead end. And on top of that, cadaver dogs have been put on hold in this search. This is a detail that's been quietly reported, but hasn't gotten a ton of attention. Obviously, they can't keep searching when options are limited or they don't have a specific area to investigate, but this is still another ominous sign.
And there's still no named suspect or motive that's been publicly established. Authorities say they believe Nancy was removed from the home against her will, but investigators still have no leading theory about why. They also have not ruled out the possibility that more than one person was involved.
The internet connectivity angle is something I hadn't seen reported before either. Federal investigators are now looking into whether internet service disruptions in Nancy's neighborhood the night she vanished could be tied to the abduction. Neighbors reported their home security camera footage from that night is missing or marked not available. And authorities have reportedly asked residents about unusual connectivity problems around February 1st.
So, someone may have deliberately knocked out the internet in the neighborhood to shut down security cameras in the area before taking her. That is, that's chilling. That kind of level of planning.
Yeah, there's also something else that keeps being brought up that we need to talk about. Investigators have been asking neighbors specifically about January 11th, nearly 3 weeks before Nancy disappeared, but authorities have not said publicly why that date is significant.
And now the family is asking the public about it too. In their latest statement this week, they specifically asked the community to search their memories around the key timelines of January 31st, the early morning hours of February 1st, and the late evening of January 11th.
And FBI agents have gone back to the neighborhood this week, knocking on doors, asking new questions specifically about a vacant property and nearby construction activity. So, whatever they're looking at with that date, it sounds like they may be circling something.
Meanwhile, the family is doing everything they can publicly. Savannah posted on Instagram this week asking the Tucson community to go through camera footage, journal notes, text messages, and any observations or conversations that might hold significance in retrospect. She wrote, quote, "Someone knows how to find our mom and bring her home," end quote.
In their family statement, they said something that really strikes a chord. Quote, "We cannot grieve. We can only ache and wonder," end quote. They are stuck in this impossible limbo, 50 days in.
If you have any information at all, even something that seems small, please contact the FBI. The tip line is 1-800-CALL-FBI. That's 1-800-225-5324. The family is offering $1 million for information leading to her recovery, and the FBI is offering an additional $50,000.
50 days in and they have nothing. Like, obviously, there was a very high level of planning that went into this. Like, these people knew what they were doing. They had a plan on how to not get caught.
I think that there's still just a whole lot that we don't know.
There's probably so much information that they have that they're not telling the public. I still don't think there's any way she's still alive, especially given her health conditions. As sad as that is to say.
It's heartbreaking, but yes, I would be very, very surprised myself.
Mm-hmm. Regardless, they deserve to know what happened to her, where she is, why this was done.
Yep.
We'll keep following it and update you as we get more information. Okay, so this next story is wild, and one of the most disturbing cases I've read about in a long time.
The fertilizer tank case.
Yeah, the fertilizer tank case. And before we even get into it, we have a verdict. On March 10th, 2026, a jury in Lenawe County, Michigan, convicted Dale Warner of second-degree murder and tampering with evidence in the death of his wife, Dee Warner.
Most of you are probably asking, what are y'all even talking about? So let's break it down. The victim, Dee Warner, was 52 years old and living on a farm in Lenawe County, Michigan, with her husband, Dale.
Dee was an entrepreneur and ran multiple businesses with Dale, trucking, farming, and fertilizer sales. They'd been married since 2006, had a young daughter together, and a blended family of 9 kids total.
That sounds like a lot.
Yeah, it apparently was a lot, and things had been getting really bad between them. By 2021, both the marriage and the businesses were struggling. They fought constantly over money, over the kids, and over the businesses. Dale suspected Dee of having an affair and was spying on her.
And the night before she disappeared, things came to a head. Dee told Dale she wanted a divorce and wanted to sell their trucking business. She was, in the words of the prosecutor, tired and done.
The next morning, April 25th, 2021, Dee's daughter arrived for their usual Sunday breakfast and found her gone. There had been no activity on her phone, bank accounts, or social media. Her cars were still on the property, but her purse and makeup bag were missing.
In Dale's version of events, he told investigators they had argued the night before. Dee got a migraine, he rubbed her shoulders, and she fell asleep. He said he texted her the next morning, going spraying, call you later, and claimed it was actually normal for Dee to just take off for a few days sometimes.
Apparently, Dee's kids knew better because they immediately felt like something was wrong. They reported her missing. Dale didn't want to call the police.
That detail always gets me. Why would you not want to call the police if your wife is just gone?
Because you know where she is. And here's where it gets really dark. Surveillance footage from April 25th, the day Dee disappeared, showed Dale gathering welding supplies on the farm. Body camera footage from the next day showed what appeared to be welding burns on his arms.
Investigators also noticed that Dale had checked Dee's location over 2,100 times between January 2019 and April 2021. Over 2,000 times. That is not a husband who trusts his wife. That's surveillance.
Prosecutors also laid out instances of Dale tracking Dee's whereabouts using an app connected to her Cadillac and putting a tracking device in her Hummer. He was watching her constantly.
So investigators clearly had their guy. But here's the problem. There was no body and no crime scene. There was also no physical evidence of a struggle anywhere on the property. Unfortunately, the case stalled, and years went by.
But then, in November of 2023, 2.5 years after Dee disappeared, Dale was actually arrested and charged with her murder, even without a body, which is wild. Prosecutors believe they had enough circumstantial evidence to go forward.
And then, in August 2024, investigators executed a search warrant and found Dee's remains inside tank number 34 on Dale's property. She was in her pajamas, wrapped in 2 blue tarps, with her face and neck duct taped.
There's something about her being in her pajamas that really gets to me. It's eerie.
The medical examiner confirmed she had been strangled and suffered blunt force trauma to her face and head.
So, how did they figure out to look in a tank? Dale had searched, quote, how to dispose of a 1,000-gallon propane tank, end quote, on his iPad in May 2021, right after Dee went missing. Combined with the surveillance footage of him with welding equipment, investigators developed a theory that he had welded her inside a tank. They started looking for tanks that had been re-welded.
And here's a detail that will make your skin crawl. A jail call was played in court between Dale and his son, Jaron, the day after Dee's body was found. Jaron told Dale that police had seized an anhydrous tank for X-ray screening. He told him it was tank number 34, and Dale's response was, quote, "Is that the one we painted and put decals on?" End quote.
He said that on a recorded jail call, and investigators confirmed the tank had been resealed and repainted to blend in with the others. It even had Dale's own logo put on it.
Oh, the audacity. It's incomprehensible.
It's just like, here's a sign to look at this one. Just what an idiot. The jury deliberated for 9 hours over 2 days and came back guilty on both counts: second-degree murder and tampering with evidence. Sentencing is set for May 7th, 2026, and he's facing anything from several years to life in prison.
The defense says they're going to appeal, and Dee's family has also filed a civil lawsuit over her estate, which includes 4,000 acres of land and multiple businesses, arguing that Dale should have no claim to any of it.
Good. I hope they get every single acre. Greg Hardy, Dee's brother, said it best outside the courthouse. Quote, "To do that to a human being, let alone the mother of your child or your wife, it's impossible to conceive how someone could be that evil." End quote. Just get a divorce. Just get the divorce. Why is it murder? Why do we go from I want a divorce to murder? Like, this dude was obviously mentally unstable, very obsessed with her, like every single action. There's no proof that I've seen that she was cheating on him. He was just very insecure.
That's I was going to say insecurity can do a number.
There are deep dives I've seen on this case, and I'm sure there's way more details, but it's very Chris Watts.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm. Except this was on his own property. But Chris Watts was at his place of work, which is just as bad.
None of it's good. It's all bad.
At least he's finally in prison serving his time. So, okay. And I say this a lot on this show, but this next story is genuinely one of the strangest things I have ever read about.
Same. And it's strange in a way that's also really unsettling because a real kid almost got hurt.
Yeah, I want to make that clear up front. This story has a lot of bizarre elements, but there was a real intended victim here, and his family has been through a lot. So let's get into it. January 22nd, 2026. Lake Brantley High School in Altamonte Springs, Florida. An anonymous tips comes into the school safety app, Fortify FL, reporting that a student was planning to kill somebody we know from school the very next day.
And thank God someone said something, because when school officials searched the backpack of 15-year-old Isabelle Valdez the next morning, they found a knife, gloves, trash bags, and cleaning wipes.
This wasn't some vague threat. This was an active plan with supplies.
Valdez allegedly told investigators she had memorized the intended victim's class schedule, had been secretly following him and photographing him around campus, and planned to push him into a bathroom stall and attack him with a 12-inch knife while using a microfiber towel to muffle his screams.
The level of planning here is what makes this so disturbing. This wasn't an impulsive thing. And her best friend, 14-year-old Lois Lippert, was allegedly in on it. Lippert brought supplies for the plan and helped sharpen the knife. She also allegedly brought flowers to school for the victim's funeral.
Flowers. For the funeral of the person they hadn't killed yet.
And cigarettes. Allegedly, Valdez planned to smoke a cigarette after it was done.
Okay, so why? Why this kid? And this is where it gets really strange. Investigators say the victim reminded Valdez of Adam Lanza, the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooter, and that she believed if she killed him, she would form a blood bond with Lanza that would resurrect him from the dead.
She believed she could bring him back to life by killing someone who looked like him.
Valdez had also written a letter to her parents, which was recovered by deputies. In it, she wrote, quote, "I chose to do this by myself, for myself, and Adam Lanza. They told me that Adam would come back to speak to me if I did this for him. I love Adam Lanza. We're soulmates, just waiting to be reunited once more." End quote.
She also told investigators she sometimes heard voices telling her to hurt people. There are clearly serious mental health questions here that are going to be part of how this case unfolds.
Absolutely. And both girls have pleaded not guilty. Valdez's attorney said she's entitled to the presumption of innocence and that his focus is on making sure she gets a fair and thorough legal process.
Now, here's the part that had everyone talking when this story broke. After the two were arrested and put in the back of a patrol car, they were recorded on the vehicle's camera. And what's on that footage is just jaw-dropping.
They're laughing throughout the ride, complaining about the classmate who tipped off authorities, talking about sharpening the knife, and mentioning school shooters. Lippert says at one point, quote, "This is such a bonding experience. I love this," end quote.
Valdez says at one point, quote, "I don't feel guilty for my actions," end quote.
And then, and this is the detail that went viral, Valdez says, quote, I was going to do my makeup this morning for the mugshot, but I couldn't find anything. End quote.
They were worried about their mugshots.
Prosecutors played that footage at the girls' bond hearing specifically as evidence of the threat they continue to pose, saying it showed them laughing while discussing bringing a knife and other supplies to school to carry out the murder.
The judge agreed. Both teens were denied bond and are being held in the Seminole County Jail. They've been charged as adults. The state attorney's office said prosecuting them as adults gives the justice system more options to incarcerate and manage them long term than the juvenile system would allow.
Their next court hearing is scheduled for April 29th. We'll keep following this one.
And I just want to close by saying the reason this story ends here and not in tragedy is because one kid heard something and told someone. Prosecutors made a point in court of saying that because that student heard something and said something, investigators were able to intervene before anyone was hurt.
That anonymous tip saved someone's life. Full stop.
There's obviously a lot of things going on here.
There's so much there, but it is honestly terrifying that young children can behave like that.
These are 14 and 15-year-olds, not much older than our oldest kids.
Yep.
Planning this level of attack on someone else for this crazy reason. And I hate to be that person, but when we have situations like this, my first question is, where were their parents?
Yes, but also, especially this day and age with social media, kids have learned to be a lot sneakier
as we know,
than we ever were.
They get away with a lot more because I think parents don't even think that their child would do something like this or have the mental capability of coming up with this sort of action. Obviously, this 15-year-old needs some mental help, especially if she says she's hearing voices. So there's a lot of different layers here to unfold. And originally I was like, well, at least hopefully she'll end up in a mental health facility to get some help for the things she needs instead of a juvenile facility. But if they're going to be prosecuting them as adults, even at this age, who knows?
There's no telling. Clearly, there are so many more true crime headlines we could discuss, but these are the ones that really grabbed our attention this week. If you're enjoying these headlines episodes and want us to continue, let us know. Reach out to us on Instagram at Weird True Crime or send us a message through the contact form on our website, weirdtruecrime.com.
Make sure to come see us at Beyond the Crime Convention at the Isleta Resort and Casino in Albuquerque from April 11th to 12th. Use our code BEYOND-WEIRD at checkout to get 12% off your tickets. Or come see us at CrimeCon at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas from May 29th through 31st. Use code WEIRD10 at checkout to get 10% off of those tickets.
We really have to start planning our outfits, and I really pray that I'm not going to have to wear this stupid boot.
Yeah. I'll be thinking positive thoughts for you on that one, my friend.
Thanks, I appreciate it. So come back next week for another What the Fuck Wednesday.
Until next time, stay safe.
And make good choices.
Bye.
Bye.